Nästa talare är en flerfaldigt prisbelönad danska som av hänsyn till oss svenskar kommer att föreläsa på engelska. Välkommen Nanna Gotfredsen, jurist och projektledare, en av grundarna till rättshjälpsorganisationen Där är juristerna i Köpenhamn, som ska prata om den skadereducerande utvecklingen i världen de senaste åren. Välkommen.
Tusind tak. I have to admit, my Swedish is so bad. I don't understand almost anything. The taxi driver driving me here, because I was in a hurry and delayed, he asked me when I tried to talk to him if I was from Finland. Oh, this was so really bad. I was just trying to say something in Swedish. I'm sorry about it. But yes, I am a street lawyer. And I was invited here, and I would like to thank the Swedish Drug Users Union for inviting me. I really like these guys. I have I have known them for several years. I have been traveling to international conferences with drug users from all over the world, and I must admit, I am a lawyer. I haven't had better teachers than drug users themselves. So thank you, and thank you for inviting me here. Yes, this is my headline, When Life, Dignity. You can see some pictures here from Copenhagen, from Aarhus and Odense, the three largest cities in Denmark, where we do this street lawyering, street-based, and it's a legal aid service, but on the streets and integrated with harm reduction services. We serve mainly drug users, and I'll try not to, I'm invited to talk about the Danish situation, but it is a part of the Danish situation to serve Swedish drug users who have fled from Sweden because they couldn't get into treatment, because they found it easier to survive on the streets in Denmark. And that is, I hope we can discuss it, because that is bad. But I have really good friends among our Swedish drug users trying to get better lives in Denmark. We also serve people who sell sexual services on the streets. Homeless people, a lot of them have mental illnesses, different kinds. We are 7 staff members by now, and then we have about many lawyers, and then we have about 40 volunteers, mainly law students, lawyers, but also doctors, psychologists, midwives, nurses, and so on, whatever we need to be useful to the people who use drugs. So this is our goal, that we can be useful for people who use drugs. Last year we handled almost 1,300 cases. That's a lot. We are busy and we are good. We win a hell of a lot of our cases. When we go to court and when we go to the municipalities, but that's actually quite easy, because the case handling is so bad when it's about people we don't like. And that's actually quite sad. It's cases about social benefits, it's cases about access to treatment, access to the healthcare system where people are just denied and rejected. It's about housing, of course, a lot of people are homeless. It's about access to shelters, it's about family law, forcible removed kids, and of course people who use drugs love their kids as well as the rest of us. So we have a lot of these cases, and cases getting it possible for these parents to actually be with their kids. Criminal cases, mainly drug laws, we are really good at those cases. We win 9 of 10 cases, and I guess the police hate us for that. And then we have, unfortunately, a lot of cases where street-based people, drug users, homeless people and so on, are victims of crimes. That is also really, really bad. If I go back to 1999, I have to take you there just for a moment. And I wanted to meet good friends of mine. They're not here anymore, they passed away. These are the wounds I met with. It just got me so angry. It got me so angry knowing that these fine women, great women, they were my guides in this world I didn't know anything about. I was a lawyer. I didn't have any plan of becoming a street lawyer, but it just happened. And they helped me so much doing this job. I'm not showing this to discuss you. I'm showing these pictures because what became very clear to me was that if I was able to take pictures of their social situation, of their economic and financial situation, the treatment situation, family situation, their isolation, the pictures would leave us with same sad feelings because it was all around. It was just a bad situation. And I started very early thinking about, is it the drugs that are the problem? Or is it a wider situation that is problematic? And getting to know these fine people, really know them. I was with them for maybe 10, 12 hours a day. The drug problem almost disappeared. It just drowned in other problems. And I could solve a lot of them. And actually, I saw it helped on the drug situation too. What we need to do is to listen to the people. We need to listen to their needs and how they describe and define problems themselves, and then serve them from that point. I didn't know how right I was. I'm just a lawyer. But actually, if we go back in time, do you know the research rat park? Yeah? No? Rat park, we have to go even further. But the question asked is, are drugs actually the problem? This is Bruce Alexander. I can only strongly recommend you to read his great piece, The Globalization of Addiction, summing up 40 years of research. His website is globalizationofaddiction.ca. He's a psychologist. He's from Vancouver, where they have huge problems, and I've had really, really big problems with drug use and so on, drug addiction, for many, many years. He's working with us here. And he's a friend now, I'm about to say. But we have to go even further back. This is from a study in the US. Just a short time before we heard President Nixon say that, declare the war on drugs and saying that drugs are the public enemy #1 and all these things we know from history. That was partly based on this study about where the researchers took rats, isolated them in small cages, you can see it down there, one on one. They had food and water, and then they had free access to drugs. Morphine, heroin, morphine and cocaine. Did they use drugs? Did they use a lot of drugs? They used really, really, really a lot of drugs, and the Americans said, wow, drugs are dangerous. Really, really dangerous. War on drugs. But Bruce asked the question no one else asked at that point. And that was, what about the setting? How do rats feel being isolated in small cages like that? Totally deprived, depressed, isolated, nothing meaningful except from using drugs, and maybe illegal. How do they feel about that? And then he did this study, Rat Park, and you can find it on his website. And there were females and males. They were having a lot of how do you say that in English? Rat kids. They were playing, they were having a lot of fun, there were food and water and free access to drugs. Morphine, cocaine, you name it. Did they use? They were too busy. They were too busy enjoying their lives. They were too busy having rackets and looking for food and so on. And here you can see the difference between the caged rats and their drug use and how the rats who were situated in the rat park in a meaningful rat paradise condition. Yeah, there were a few, not a lot, a few rats who were curious, you know, what were we saying, curiosity killed the cat. They tried some drugs, but they quit very, very easily and quickly because they had better things to do. They had a meaningful life. And you know what? Bruce Alexander was not able to get his study published anywhere. No one wanted to listen to this story that a good drug policy is a good social policy. A good drug policy is something I guess you in the 50s or 60s in Sweden called folkhemmet. Eh? Yeah. That's a good drug policy. That's a really good drug policy because drugs, they're not that important if you feel good. So these are some of the issues from the rat park study that no one wanted to listen to. That drug use, addiction, is a functional adaptation strategy when you're dislocated, when you are out of anything meaningful, you're isolated, deprived, alone, totally alone. Then drug use, problematic drug use, too much drug use can be a solution rather than a problem. And that fits actually that what I've seen from 15 years, I have assisted hundreds and hundreds of users who wanted to go to drug-free treatment in inpatient treatment centers, behandlingshem, and they wanted to become drug-free. But when it comes to opioids, methadone, heroin, and so on, 8 of 10 started using again within the first year. So we have a problem. We have a problem when drugs aren't the problem, because then becoming drug-free is not the solution. And it is a fact that drug-free treatment, it goes not only for Denmark but all over the world, that drug-free treatment doesn't work for most people most of the time, illustrated by this drawing. So we don't have, if we think about the treatment as something that makes you drug-free and then start working in a bank and so on, there's no reason for being that treatment optimistic, and that is because we must never forget rat park. We must never forget to ask people what are their problems actually. Is the drug use their problem? Or do they have other problems? Do they have mental issues? Are they too lonely to have a nice life and so on? We need to have a context approach, not just talk about drugs. Then we'll continue to fail and fail and fail, and it's the most vulnerable people among us who pay the price. That's not good behavior from us, I think. The good news when we say that there's no reason for that kind of treatment optimism is that we actually have a treatment. We have methadone treatment, we have buprenorphine, we have heroin. In Denmark we prescribe heroin. I can't, probably not even in Danish, tell you how amazing it was to see people who had struggled so hard to survive while waiting to grow in just a month, totally change, totally be, in just a month. They were doing so good. That was amazing. I knew it from the Swiss study, from the German study, from the Dutch study. I knew that we could expect huge improvements after 30 days, but seeing it, that was really amazing. So let's, just a moment again, this was, when I started in 99, I started the Street Lawyers. This was what we did. This is actually a really nice drawing of the police. They didn't always smile that way. But this was what we were doing at that time. We were just sweeping the streets. We didn't want drug users around. We fined them. We arrested them, and we filled our prisons with them. And this is what this caricature is saying. At the same time, we could start to see results from cities who did things in another way. And I think this is an extremely interesting figure, because you can see in 1999, Frankfurt made a total U-turn. The police stopped harassing drug users. They stopped and frisk and search. They didn't, to the same degree as they did earlier, take their drugs from them. They started the first, it would probably be right to call it an illegal drug consumption room, DCR, but it was a drug consumption room in a new shelter called Eastside, where people could inject their drugs and they could survive doing it because people took care of them. Look at the death rate. Look at what happened when they scaled up methadone treatment, scaled up shelters, scaled up social work, stopped the police in repressive law enforcement, and opened the first DCR. They actually stopped dying. I think it's interesting. This is the Danish drug policy at that time, kind of a four-pillar model, but totally uncoordinated. Nothing was totally fragmented, and a lot of law enforcement. You can see what, this is just an example to show how bad it is. This is a map from the police. For 20 years, it ended 2 years ago. It was a very happy day. But the police had these areas behind the central station in Copenhagen where it was called no-go zones, forbudszoner. And if you were banned from being there, I live in the no-go zone number 9. I was never banned, I was never fined, I was never nothing. You had to be homeless, you had to be a drug user, you had to be selling sex on the streets to get a ban. And then you got fined 600 Danish kroner every time you were seen in this area. They did that for 20 years. It was completely illegal. We took them to court and we won the case. But in an overlap of 3 of these no-go zones, we had the most important needle syringe program, NSP, in the whole country. That was totally crazy. So what choice are we giving people? Do you want HIV or a penalty? That's so bad. We need to coordinate. We need to talk together. We need to stop ruining each other's work. And what has happened in Denmark? I said it earlier. We are not there yet, but we started early in the 1980s. We had NSPs and we had methadone treatment, but on a very small scale. Then we implemented the term reducing harm in Danish legislation. We did that the first time in '98, but you couldn't say it loud. If you said harm reduction at that time in Denmark, you were really, really, really bad. You were really bad. I did. Then we had the treatment guarantee in '03. We had a conservative government from '01 and 10 years ahead. And they decided to have this zero tolerance, increased policing, law enforcement, harsher penalties, and bigger fines. But just 3 years later, we could see that that was a bad idea, and people couldn't pay the fines, and we didn't have any space left in the prisons and so on. So we decriminalized possession of drugs. Had a warning, not a fine, not go to prison, only a warning. Also in repeated cases. You need to be a drug addicted to get that kind of the mildest punishment we have in Danish criminal law, but still, that's where we are at now. In the same year, something really crazy happens, and I don't have the time to tell you why. Maybe you can ask me questions in the afternoon or in the coffee breaks. But we got heroin treatment. We had a conservative government who said, now we have to do something, people are suffering. We know enough, so we don't need a trial. We have had so many trials in Switzerland and so on. We can just do it, and we did it. We can just do it, and we did it. It took a while, it took 3 years, and then we started the 5 heroin clinics in 10. In 2005, something really interesting as well happened. And that was us. Not just the street lawyers, but the local community in Copenhagen. We said enough is enough. We want these people, the most vulnerable among us, we want them treated good. So we mobilized. Change is not coming from Parliament in this area. Change is not coming from central authorities. Change comes bottom up. So what we did was we had this mantra: we want good solutions for people who use drugs. It's also good solutions for the communities, society. So this is what we want. We want enough shelters, we want cafes, we want DCRs, drug consumption rooms, and that took a while because we didn't have the support from the Conservative government. But in 2011, during the national election campaign, the Social Democrats won, but it safer injecting facility, we just did it. Do you know Frank Vam, a Danish comedian, clown? No. Yeah, you know, he's really funny, and he lives in that area, and he has a lot of money, so he made it possible for us to buy an old German ambulance, and we just made it use in a DCR, drug consumption room, and we started it. We also managed, I mentioned it before, to shut down the red zones. We took police to court, we won, and we are still having a good dialogue. They knew that these no-go zones didn't work at all, so we had to stop it. In 12, we got the DCR law. So we had the mobile SIP running for about 8-9 months with volunteering doctors, 200 doctors and nurses, and a lot of local citizens just running it on a voluntary basis, and it was amazing, no one died. But with the DCR law, we went from no-go zones to a free zone. This is a map from the police. In this red area, the big red area, officers are expected not to stop and search pockets when it comes to people who use drugs. Don't take their drugs away. It is not doing anything good. It actually just increases the drug trade, drug dealing, because people don't stop using because they get their next shoot-up confiscated. So this is a free zone. That is change, and we needed that. We also got, I think we have the world record in expanding with the drug consumption rooms. We now have 5 in Denmark. It only took 14 months. Everyone in the bigger cities thought this was amazing. We really needed the DCRs because they are so great, actually. They're so good to drug users and they're so good to local communities. and people get referred to the treatment system earlier than they would have otherwise. I'm completely sure about that. We have a lot of research saying that from abroad. But what else? We prescribe heroin not only as injections but also as tablets. And from the 1st of January, we have been fighting very hard for that. It will become a legal right to see a doctor when you need methadone prescription within 3 days from asking for it, and you are free to choose your prescribing doctor. So you can just go across the country, find a good doctor. We have bad doctors. I'm afraid to say we have really bad doctors. So this is going to be tremendous. And the third DCR will open in Copenhagen in 2 years from now. So this is it. What is all this about? The people, local communities mobilizing and demanding change. We need to take care of, I think we actually have something like Folkhemmet. Maybe we have a little more like Folkhemmet in Denmark than you have here. I don't know, but we couldn't accept these conditions. These are human beings. They were suffering. We take care of them. So we wanted to include and give equal status to people who use drugs. We wanted to count. We want people who use drugs to count. And we are totally convinced, we know it, all of us know it, that the drug problem, I don't actually like that expression because it's rather a drug phenomenon. It's here, whether we like it or not, and it cannot be fixed. But we can manage, and we can do a hell of a lot better than we do now. And if we should be able to do better, then we need to give up all our illusions and good intentions and accept that we need evidence-based policies. That's a necessity. If dignity, health and survival counts. So we are heading here now. You remember the fragmented model? Now we have at least a better integrated and coordinated model, better balance. We have the heroin, ask me later. You cannot choose whether people will use heroin or not. That's not our choice. But we can choose whether we would like people to use heroin produced in Afghanistan. We had anthrax, milk pump in Denmark 2 years ago. I lost a very good friend of mine. He died 4 days. It took only 4 days and he was gone. Would we prefer people to use heroin out of Afghanistan or this version used in the riot, the UK trial a few years ago? That's our choice. We cannot choose anything else, no matter how much we would love to. This is from the heroin clinic. You should go there, visit it, see it, meet the good people. It works extremely well. There are too few seats. We could have a lot more. We have about 300 people who have been enrolled. And there are also people who have been enrolled in the heroin program who decide to quit using. We knew that from Swiss as well, so it was not a surprise. But what makes me really sad is that most of them who went to drug-free treatment started using again and died from ODs. And then I get, hey, they were doing so fine in that heroin program. Why couldn't they stay? Would we still have had them among us? I think we would. About the DCRs, I'm about to close, but the need for DCRs is not a new thing. This is from a demo where the mothers with their kids and so on demanded a childhood free from needles in '76. It's not a new issue, and still we had to wait about 30 years before we could come up with solutions. That's actually not that clever, is it? But we did have DCRs. These are the restrooms. They're closed now, but for more than 20 years, these were drug consumption rooms for drug users in the basement on Central Station. The nice ladies working there, they saved so many lives, so we awarded them 2 years ago for their amazing job. This is just a few pictures from how we just did it. This is in front of the street lawyer's office, the private initiative. We just did it with the mobile set. This is Frank Vam, spending a lot of money on this important case. And what did it take? The street lawyers did a paper on drug consumption rooms, the experiences from other countries. You can read it on our website. It's from 2002. I'm not so proud of it anymore because I know more now. But I haven't had the time to update it. But you know, EU Drug Center, EMCDDA, they did an amazing, Dagmar Hedrick, she did an amazing work on this as well. So you can just take her instead of mine. Then we were some crazy citizens who we just wanted to change the world. We opened a cafe where we could serve good meals for people who were hungry, and they could get legal advices and just have a good time. We had fun with the money, our money guy, and we did a legal paper saying, basically, it's 20 pages, so, but basically, Denmark is a constitutional state. What is not illegal in a constitutional state? DCRs are not illegal, they're legal. So we just did it, and the police stepped up. Over the years, the support from the police had grown a lot. So that's the last thing that's been really important, that we have handled things a lot better, at least in Copenhagen, was a behaving police. So this is it. This is from the DCRs in Copenhagen. Nice rooms. You should go there. Ask if you can come in and say hi. They're very open-minded for visitors. This is the latest from the municipality of Copenhagen, a mobile, safer injecting site. This is the biggest DCR we have, the sky, the cloud, skyen. High in the sky. Does it work? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It definitely works. Look at this. Back in the first line, that's when we put the police, intensified law enforcement, street-based law enforcement. Look at the death rate. It kills people. It kills people. They need something else than police and law enforcement and repressive actions. The decrease you see from 2005 till 8, it only counts from Copenhagen. This was the period where we, the local community in Copenhagen, mobilized. We opened the cafe you saw before. And yes, what was going on the restrooms? Of course, it was our first version of a drug consumption room. It was about saving people's lives. And you can see, I think that's what you can see here. The yellow line, it's the line after the mobile safer injecting facility. The yellow line, that's where we started. And look how the death rate is now. We cannot, there's so many things we don't know. We don't even know how many OD last year in Denmark. We only have the figures from 12. But this looks of something, doesn't it? Let's never forget Niels Christie. I like him. Yes. Niels Christie said in, I think it was 84, and it still goes, en af de farligste former for brug af narkotika end politisk. Let's keep an eye on that. When are we evidence-based? When are we just hopeful? When are we illusionary? When are we political? When we're not evidence-based, someone is paying the price. One of my very, very good friends, I'll end here, letting you meet Margareta. She was in the office yesterday and she's doing really, really well now. We have known her for many years and we're crazy about her. And she just wanted to send you a little message, and it's here. We take care of a lot of your fellow citizens, especially in Copenhagen. It's an important saying for me. That's why we do street lawyering. That's why we talk harm reduction. That's why we insist on introducing evidence-based policies in this area. But we need to be more out there. I would love to have a Swedish colleague, so if you know any Swedish lawyers who would do street lawyering for the next 15 years and hopefully make the same improvements as we have managed in Denmark, please let me know. But we need you out there. We need to stick together. We need to do this together. It's not enough with just small, how do you say that? Plaster? On huge, open, bleeding wounds. And we should never forget also to be nice to drug users. They deserve it. Thank you.
Tack så mycket, Nanna. Jag tänkte faktiskt ställa en fråga till dig. Jag ska den på svenska, för vi tog upp telefonen på oss. Det är redan grundat. Jag tänkte bara inledande, när vi pratar om vad tematrubriken för dagen är, vi vill leva. Som metadonläkaren Lars Gunne sa då en gång i tiden. Man kan inte rehabilitera en död narkoman. Nej, men kan man rehabilitera en narkoman med legalförskrivet heroin då?
Yeah!
Hur då? Utveckla det.
Overhovedet ingen tvivl om det. Spørgsmålet er, om vi giver dem lov.
Forstår ni hvad hun siger?
Okay. The question, yes, of course. You understand my yes? Yeah? You understand my yes? Yes, of course you can. The question is rather whether we let them rehabilitate. I have, again, a good friend, heroin user for 35 years. He's just been waiting for that heroin program. He tried methadone a few times, it didn't work for him. He has provided for himself all these years, no social benefits. He's been working, it's been a tough life. But he was so happy when the heroin, he worked lifetime. He was so happy when the heroin program started, of course. It was such a relief, but he had to stop working. Because he must go to the clinic 9 o'clock in the morning. That was at the time when he finished work. He's been working all night, and then he lives far away from the clinic, so he couldn't go home and sleep. And then he had to wait there at the clinic for his second injection between 3 and 5 in the afternoon. And of course he couldn't also handle to have a job. So now he has pension, førtidspension. Because we don't let him. Because we design the heroin clinic to be a failure for him. That's our fault, it's not his fault. So that's the question. It's about the context, it's about the conditions. Will we let people live?
Tack. Fråga på det. Där har vi en fråga. Du får gärna också berätta vem du är.
Gunnel Grönberg, journalist. I just want to know, you talk about the heroin project in Denmark, but do you know if there are less strict regulations, for instance, in Holland, so it's more easy for a heroin person in legal heroin treatment to just be away for a week and get the medication at home?
Unfortunately not, but they have better opening hours. So in Denmark they open 9 o'clock, and in a lot of the clinics in Germany and in the Netherlands and in Switzerland they open 7 o'clock, so people can work and provide for themselves. So that's actually about opening hours. We're not there yet where we would consider anywhere in the world, I guess. It's not, but in the UK, they never took heroin. It's called diamorphin out of the pharmacy shelves. But it's only about 100 psychiatrists who can prescribe heroin. But I know a really, really great reporter, journalist actually, who is prescribed heroin. She gets a week dosage and there's no problem. And then she can work. So, but not in any of the places where we have had a trial and political arguments about continuing and so on. We're not losing enough yet. We should.
Ja, hejsan. Jag heter Nanna Gotfredsen och jobbar. I work central for the city of Stockholm på the social department of executive offices.
Yeah.
This was fascinating. It was really cool. I have one question I've been wondering about, and that is, in Denmark, do you all look at addiction as an illness, and it's a sickness? In Sweden, that's a big problem. They have not, or we have not. Addiction has been seen as kind of a stigma depending upon your background, how your home environment was, and all this other kind of stuff. And it has been very difficult for people with addiction lots of times to get the correct help, as we have heard today, through the health care.
Yeah.
I think one of the best things that could happen in this country would be if we would raise addiction so that people would get more help. Now, in Denmark, I understand you're much more lenient about these type of things, or have I misunderstood?
No, in some parts of the countries, we would probably define it as an illness, or you need medication, and that's not an issue. And your doctor, if you have kids at home, in your home, the doctor would not think about calling the word obvious problems, but yeah. Just because you started using again, that's normal. Come on, yeah. That's what we know. We know it from using again and again and using again and again and again. That's it. We have this 33 years follow-up study showing that the small part of people who can stay off drugs, when we talk about opioids, right, for 15 years, 25% stops using again at some point. So there's a high degree, it's kind of a chronic disease, but it's not only a disease, and I think that's important, because in some parts of Norway now, they always talk about drug addiction and methadone treatment as lifelong, that you need it until... No. It might not be so.
No.
And that's so strange about this condition. So it can actually pass, but not because you're told to stop, not because you have the police on the neck, not because, because you get the opportunity to build your own rat park. Then it might be less important or of no meaning at all. So, but in Denmark, it's very, I said it in a not so nice way. We have extremely bad doctors who see methadone as a drug and themselves as drug lords, and that's so bad.
But don't they have to work, I mean, considering if you look at this as an illness, aren't they doing wrong in their practice as doctors?
They are, and we complain about it, and it takes 2 or 3 years to get these cases, But we have found another way now. I'll write an article about it. To get after them. To stop them. It's malpractice.
Yeah.
They're really, really harassing people. It's so bad. So, to some degree, and I think it would actually be more interesting to hear from people who use drugs themselves. Do they actually consider this as a disease or just as a disease? It is also a disease, and it is very well treated with very well documented medication, methadone, heroin, so on. But it's not only a disease, it is a situation.
It's a combination of things.
It is, Addiction is not, we have this badge we deliver on the streets. Addiction is not just a disease, it is a situation where the disease is part of the picture. So, but what we need to do is to help people build their paradigms.
Thank you very much. Oh, just one more question. I also heard that in Denmark, all the people that have an addiction problem with heroin or with amphetamine, they learn how to do, how do you say it again in English? You know, like someone gets a heart attack, how to help them.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic.
First aid.
Yeah, exactly.
And naloxone. I trained the street lawyers. I didn't do it. I found a doctor to do it years ago. So we have naloxone antidote in our pockets as lawyers. Sometimes we have actually to. That's crazy. We have to. We find people almost dead. OD, and we have to give them an injection of antidote before we can ask them for their legal aid needs. So that's it. But we also have started projects where drug users and their relatives have naloxone in their pockets. That's amazing. Yeah, and it works. We know it works. We know from lots of studies in the US especially.
Jag vill bara säga som lite mer varför vi drar över tidsaspekten. Vi har en talare som uteblir idag, så vi har lite tid över för att vi går om. Så vi har plats för en fråga till innan vi går igång nästa fråga. Hi, Karina Hedlund, Rose Alliance. I'm just wondering, how long did it take for people to find the DCRs when you open it?
A minute?
Förstår du vad jag menar? Tog det lång tid innan ni gick inte?
A minute.
Like a minute?
Yeah, because people who use drugs were involved in the establishing, of course. And how should we design it? And but we only had the money we had for the opening hours. But they were just right there on the spot. And no one else, it's not attractive to young people who are on the way to Copenhagen Jazz House and on a night out. It's not attractive. It's only attractive and attracting people who really need it. But they like the place, they feel safe there, and they have been involved in the establishing. And that comes to whether it is about sex workers or people who use drugs, nothing about you without you.
Tack Nanna Gotfredsen. Ni kan såklart twittra frågor till Nanna och fånga henne i alla poster som finns om ni vill ställa fler frågor. Tack.